There was a man in ancient Rome who had every reason to be destroyed by what happened to him. Born a slave, beaten, crippled by his own master as a demonstration of power. And yet he developed the most precise framework for understanding human suffering that the ancient world ever produced. Not despite what was done to him, because of it. He did not use the word trauma. That word did not exist yet. But what he described, what he taught from a small room with almost no furniture to students who traveled across the empire to find him, is more accurate than most of what gets written about trauma today. His name was Epictetus, and what he figured out while still in chains changes everything about how suffering actually works. His master was a man named Epictetus, a freed slave himself who had risen to become a powerful secretary under Nero, which made what he did to Epictetus carry a particular kind of cruelty. One day, to demonstrate ownership, Epictetus began twisting Epictetus's leg, slowly, deliberately, watching to see what would happen. Epictetus said calmly, "You are going to break my leg." Epictetus kept twisting. The leg broke. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you?" No rage, no begging, no collapse, just a flat observation delivered without emotion to the man who had just permanently crippled him. Most people read that story and focus on the courage. That is not the right focus. The right focus is on what that response reveals about where Epictetus had already located himself. Not in his body, not in his circumstances, not in anything Epictetus could reach. He had found something inside himself that the breaking of a bone could not touch, and he had found it before he ever taught a single student, before he was free, before he was known, while he was still owned. That is not a philosophy he developed later and applied backward to his experience. That is a philosophy he discovered through the experience itself, which is exactly why it carries the weight it does. Most people locate suffering in what happened, the event, the wound, the moment. Epictetus made a distinction that almost nobody makes naturally. He separated what happens from what you conclude from what happens. He wrote that people are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about events. That sounds like a simple reframe. It is not. Because if that distinction is real, then the event is not the final authority over your inner state. Your interpretation is, and that changes the entire structure of how suffering works. The event happens outside you, the conclusion happens inside you, and the conclusion is the part that actually runs your life. Epictetus knew this, not as theory. He knew it because he had watched his own mind in real time during the worst thing that had happened to him. The leg breaking was not abstract. The calm that was possible in that moment was not abstract either. He had already separated the event from the conclusion while it was happening, which is the most difficult version of that practice imaginable. And if what you just heard landed differently than you expected, this channel goes exactly this deep every week. Subscribe before the next chapter. because what comes next is where most people misunderstand him completely. Here is where people misread Epictetus. They hear the distinction between event and judgment, and they think he is saying something soft. Ignore the pain, reframe the trauma, think positive. That is not what he meant, not even close. Epictetus never denied reality. He faced it with more precision than almost anyone who has written about suffering before or since. Pain is real, loss is real, injustice is real. He never disputed any of that. What he refused to accept automatically was the conclusion. The event says, your leg is broken. The conclusion says, you are broken. The event says, something was taken from you. The conclusion says, you are now permanently less. The event says, someone had power over your body. The conclusion says, they have power over who you are. Epictetus accepted the first part of each of those completely. He simply did not accept that the second part followed automatically from the first. And in that gap, between what happened and what it means, he located the only freedom available to him, the only freedom available to anyone. There is a specific moment after something painful happens, where the mind rushes to explain it. And in that moment, without realizing it, most people do not just process what occurred, they build an identity around it. I was hurt becomes I am damaged. I lost something becomes I am incomplete. I was treated as worthless becomes I am worth less. Epictetus saw this process with complete clarity. He had watched it happen in himself and in every person who came to study with him. The wound is real. The event is real. But the identity built on top of the event is a construction. And constructions can be examined. They can be questioned. They do not have to be accepted simply because they arrived with force. This is what he meant by discipline of judgment, not suppressing what you feel, not pretending the damage did not happen, refusing to let the damage write the final sentence about who you are. That refusal is not natural. It is not easy. It is a practice that takes years of deliberate effort, which is exactly why Epictetus built an entire school around it, and why students crossed the empire to sit in that room. When Epictetus was eventually freed, he did not pursue wealth or status. He opened a school in Nicopolis with almost no furniture and no decoration. His teaching method was direct to the point of being uncomfortable. He did not let students sit with comfortable ideas. He interrupted them. He challenged their assumptions publicly. He had no patience for people who studied philosophy as an intellectual exercise while living in complete contradiction to it. He said once that a philosopher's school should feel like a hospital. You arrive sick. You leave having been treated, not having been made to feel good about being sick. What he was treating in almost every student was the same condition, the automatic acceptance of conclusions that the evidence did not actually support. The inherited belief that what had happened to them was the final word on who they were. He had lived the most extreme version of that condition imaginable, owned, crippled, legally invisible, and he had refused to accept the conclusion that any of it implied. Not because he was special, because he had practiced the refusal until it became the default response. That practice is available to anyone. It was available to him in chains. It is available to you now. The only question is whether you are willing to do what it actually requires. Epictetus never used the word trauma, but he understood something that most trauma frameworks still struggle to articulate clearly. The event is not what holds people. The conclusion is the story built in the gap between what happened and what it means. That story, once accepted, runs quietly underneath everything. Every decision, every relationship, every assessment of what you are capable of. He spent his life teaching people to find that story and examine it, not to erase what happened, to refuse to let what happened be the last word. He was free long before anyone released him, because he had already located himself somewhere that ownership could not reach. That location is available to you. Subscribe now, because this channel is built for exactly the person who just felt something shift in how they understand their own story. What comes next will take that shift further than most content is willing to go. You will want to be here for it.